Let's do this. Let's do this, everyone. My face is still wet from washing it. Hello, it is the 25th of June, 2026. My name is Luke Thomas. This is episode 308 of my live chat. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Let's see. On the docket today, there is, unfortunately, Dustin Poirier news, although I don't know how much there is to really add to that. But there's the ranking stuff. Justin Gaethje just got nominated for Fighter of the Year ESPY. Floyd Mayweather's in trouble, man. That is a whole situation we haven't even talked about at all, dude. That guy is, I don't know about his future. That's going to be something to see. So there's that. There's really anything else you would like to get to. This chat is yours as much as it is mine. So the way this works is I put up a thread this morning. You guys filled it up with questions. We'll go for about an hour on that, and then we'll get to the paid portion after about the completion of the first hour, where if you want to put a donation into the super chat, you certainly do not have to, but if you'd like to, it really supports the channel. It goes a very long way. Or you can become a member, and then you can just contribute that for free. I know there was some issues last week with getting members' questions addressed. I'm going to have to do a members only kind of chat because there's really no way to get that back. But we'll make that right. And then for today, all those things should be normal. So tag Othello if you have any questions. He'll make sure I see your questions in the end. All right. We got a lot to get to. Time is of the essence. So without further ado, let's get this party started, shall we? Okay. All right. Did I have anything to add? Godzilla's home because school's done, and she's here with friends. My door is locked, but God only knows what will happen. You may hear, who knows what wailing and gnashing of teeth you might hear. I don't think my neighbor is going to mow the yard today, but one never knows, right? One never knows. All right, let's get these questions in, shall we? Let's refresh this so we get the latest. Okay, very good. Boop. All right. Can you see? Yeah. Okay. All right. Sensei Thomas, UFC fighters are independent contractors with no league pension or post-career health coverage. If you designed fighter welfare from scratch, what would the actual structure look like? I mean, it really just depends on kind of what model you want. There's relative to the other big leagues, there's not really a great way to match what they have. So, I mean, it's basically just two models that you could go with to better improve fighter compensation, but more than just fighter compensation, fighter welfare generally. And it's really not super complicated. One of those might be, on the one hand, it would be pursuing a path of unionization, which you could do. There's trade-offs to that, but that would make you an employee, which would change your relationship to the company. I think it would change the UFC's business practices if they were to do that. And then through the collective bargaining agreement, there could be ways to then use that to determine or to set up, some kind of, as you put it, pension, post-career health coverage, right? Something like that. That's one. Actually, it's three models. So that's one model. The second model would be that you don't even bother with that, but what you do is that you make athlete mobility much more doable, much more regular thing, and then through that they're able to maximize their wealth, and then they'd be responsible for their own financial planning on the back end, but you'd at least be giving them the tools to maximize that, right? So that'd be another model, and then you could use that second model in conjunction with the third one, which is that you invoke, and you see this, California is doing something like this. I mean, you may have missed this, or maybe you saw it too. California is going to allow people to have like a vanity combat sports license plate, and then the fees that go into making that license plate possible will then go to the retirement fund that certain California fighters would be eligible for, right? So the point I'm trying to make is then you could get some kind of tax or tax plan either at the state or federal level to then create some kind of a pension. But it would require, it's like you're like, how do you like for the union to be a possibility, the athletes have to take it upon themselves. I can't do that for them, right? For the part where we're asking state and federal authorities to, produce some kind of tax, however you want to do that, license plates or just, add it on to whatever kind of tax plan, that's something I could not control. And then obviously you're asking, if you design fighter welfare from scratch, I would have to have powers that are not enumerated in any kind of a place, right? But you can just sort of see like these are the things that we know to exist. And again, you could marry the model of the union with also some kind of taxation model as well, vanity plates, or God only knows what kind of scheme any kind of government could come up with. But these are really, I mean, the methods of helping are kind of well known. It's just a question of the power to implement that and what levers of power have to be pulled in order to make that possible. And obviously that's where the challenge really begins. Last week when you were talking about Sean Strickland's mixed political views and how the Democratic Party has failed voters because it refuses to offer a true alternative, yeah? You ended by starting to say something and then said you'll get to another time. I'd like to hear what that was. What was that? What was that? Well, now I'm trying to remember. What was I specifically going to mention? I don't recall. I mean, you can look at what happened in New York and kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about. Now, one more time, I'm trying to make this as clear as I possibly can. I don't live in New York. I don't live in Maine. I don't live in Michigan. So all of those races belong to the people who vote. And we did have a DSA candidate win the Democratic primary for mayorship here, Janice Lewis George. She won the Democratic primary, which means here in DC, if you win the Democratic primary, I mean, you're going to win the citywide one, but that hasn't happened yet. So she is still just the Democratic nominee, but she's a DSA person as well. And she has offered some views on things that I don't really agree with. And I didn't even vote in this election, to be very clear. I probably would have voted for her, but to be clear, I did not. I did not vote at all. I'm so mired in my own work that I didn't even take the time to, I didn't even know there was an election. That's not quite true. I knew it was kind of coming, but like the whole thing just descended upon me before I even had really a chance. But the point I'm trying to make is ultimately it's up to those voters. But the thing that you really have to understand about what they're offering and why the Democratic brand is in such a predicament, and you can see them, you can see the cockroaches scrambling now that the lights have been flipped on and everybody can see what has happened. A reckoning is about to happen. A reckoning is about to happen to them. Very, very, they know it, we know it, you know it, I know it. A reckoning is about to happen. They have for too long decided that a policy of A, we can't do anything, or B, if we can, it's just kind of this incrementalist nonsense that really doesn't lead to anything. I mean, just look at the world that the Democratic Party has produced, right? If you are someone who has, let's say, a similar worldview to me, look around at what they have done. Look at the fruits of their labor. They're barely hanging on as a party anyway, right? The reason why New York had the 3 elections that went Mamdani's way, which was the Chevalier election, the Valdez election, and then the Brad Lander election. The reason why these all went the way that they went is because they are actually offering a true alternative. Like this idea, like you like you guys know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, or even no matter what your political persuasion, you know I'm saying the truth. You're never gonna have a world where there's health care for everyone in this country as long as the existing corporate structure of the Democratic brand is in place. It's never going to happen. It's never, ever, ever, ever going to happen. And you know full well that they're never going to rein in big tech. And you know full well that they're never really going to rein in the billionaire class. And you know full well that they're never going to serve as an opposition party. Like, you know this. They know this. We know this. And so, it's like so hilarious to me that you can get on the news and you'll see, like, CNN, Fox, everywhere. You'll see all these mainstream political pundits being like, how can people vote for people who like this? It's like, how could they not? How could they not? Oh, they said communist things. And first of all, if Mamdani is any indication, a lot of that stuff just goes by the wayside by the time they get into office. And more to the point, no one else is seriously going to consider making healthcare available to all other than groups like that. Like, no one is seriously going to offer any kind of alternative to make education affordable. No one is seriously going to crack down on the billionaire class. No one is seriously going to rein in Israel and the excesses of their government, except people like this. Like, they left people with no choice, so they made the only choice available. It's very, 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 very easy to understand. It's super, super simple. And they want to make it complex, or they want to make it about something else, right? Oh, it's all the college-educated whites who are doing it, except some of the voting doesn't really match that. And then the other in certain precincts. And then they also want to say, oh, well, it's the third world voting for him, except it's not, because you're just telling us it's elite college whites who are voting for it. The reality is, they're the only ones offering an alternative. Now, I get that somebody like Sean Strickland might be ideologically opposed to a lot of what you see from, like, Daria Lisa, for example, right? Who, not the fuck Kamala Harris part, but, she had an old tweet, I think, about, like, I forget exactly what it was, like wiping her hands with the American flag or something, totally incendiary posting. Yeah, you'll never get people like that on board. But, like, Mamdani has made one point that I do think is worth reiterating, which is that you should judge the politics by the world that it delivers, like what the policy objectives that it delivers on. And we'll see ultimately what his administration is able to do in New York City. But I think that that's a good and helpful rubric for all parties. Judge the Democrats, the corporate side of them, for what they have done. They have produced this hell. They have produced it. I think that the best possible chance at actually building an electorate, you have to prove that you can do it usefully. But I actually think that the best chance is to, like, look at what you see in New York and recognize that that is, like, a lot more of that is coming, because they're the only ones who seem willing to confront the actual problem that we have. The reality is, we had a two-party system that for the vast majority of the 20th century, well, for long stretches of the 20th century, and then even parts of the 21st century, that they were basically, relatively good at answering most political questions or problems that we had. But it is very, very clear that that has come apart. It's come apart left and right, and for different reasons, but it has come apart. And now you have to have some kind of new political project capable of answering those questions, right? Of solving the existing political challenges of our day. You are not going to get that with a corporate party, left or right. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get that kind of a thing. We know that. We know that. There had ample opportunity to do something about it, and they haven't. So in New York, that might be a bridge too far to people who even have some heterodox views. But I do think that as a kind of strain of progressivism spreads, which it will, and to the extent that these people who are voted in are competent as leaders, which remains to be seen, but such that you get that, I think that wider movement might be able to long-term attract more people than whatever the current situation ends up being. Some people are not going to be able to be gettable. Again, in certain congressional districts versus others, you're going to get a wide disparity in what progressivism even means. But for sure, what on earth would be attractive to someone who, like, let's say, is very to the right, but has some, sense about how unfair the system is, and they're looking for some kind of political alternative? Where would they ever find that in the current Democratic Party? It's not there. It'll never be there. We know that now. We know it for certain. It'll never be there. Maybe Daria Lisa is not going to be everyone else's answer. Fair enough. But I think a guy like, again, I'll say it over and over again, I think a guy like Abdul El Sayed is. I think that is something that a lot of people are going to be able to latch onto. And I think he's going to prove very successful as he moves through this election cycle. Can you all see? Almost. Yeah, okay. All right. Rewatched Topuria versus Gaethje so many times, yet still don't understand how Justin was able to survive 7 vicious body shots, including several to the liver. We've seen people lose control of their bodies after much less. Is it mental toughness? Are some people better equipped to handle those body shots? What's your theory on that particular moment and Gaethje withstanding the onslaught? Do you agree with Justin's skepticism regarding Ilya becoming a champion again? I do not. Well, mostly I do not. And comparing his case to Tony Ferguson, where his opponent stopped fearing him once Tony was beaten and the myth of El Cucuy was over. That's not what happened, though. I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it, but that's not what happened. seems like an oversimplification given how Ilya and Tony are at different points in their careers. Yeah, I mean, people forget this, but Tony was kind of already old by the time he fought Gaethje. All right. How was Gaethje able to survive? First of all, one thing that you really, really need to understand, and this is something you'll appreciate if you watch a lot of regional MMA. I cannot tell you how many good fighters I have seen on regional MMA, guys who have good skill, or ladies too, but let's just say guys who have good skills, who are well-rounded, athletic, but they just can't take a punch. And that can be true in a number of respects, both their chin. I bring this guy up all the time, a guy who fought in the UFC who was good, Jonathan Goulet, but he was French-Canadian, I believe, but he just was not super durable. And I think it limited what he could do because he would get hit with something and it just would cause problems immediately. And that's one of those kinds of things. But he wasn't unskilled. I mean, that's the part that's kind of interesting, right? He was a skilled fighter. So there's that. The other one is, you can train to an extent some durability to the body. I suspect that Justin has, put in a lot of work to make the core as strong as possible. That doesn't preclude punishment from being delivered in a really terrifying way, but it can mitigate some of the damage. I think that's part of it. But the thing I just want to say, going back to the Goulet side, not just the chin, but to the body, Justin Gaethje is tough in a way that's hard for people to comprehend. Like, as my point I'm trying to make is, I've seen people move through the ranks, but then when, and they had good skills, but then when it came time to be able, like, to be good in UFC, you don't have to be Nogueira durable, but you do have to have a degree of durability that is well above average, I think, in order to have any success in the UFC, any kind of sustained success anyway in the UFC. And what people don't really appreciate is sometimes they'll look at a person's skills and they'll say, oh, this person's UFC good. But it's like, you have to have more than just skills to do this. This is why it's like this argument, like, oh, if we just had the best athletes, we'd have better MMA. And to be clear, that is not wrong. You would have better MMA with better athletes. But I've seen a lot of really, really good athletes just really not have the constitution for something like this. It's different. And Gaethje has the constitution. Gaethje built a style, being able, like, the whole way he understands himself in fighting, and he's refined it over time, is that when he needs his body to not fail him, it will not. And there's just not a lot of people who can count on that to the degree he can. So I'm trying to make a point about, like, at the upper echelon, these guys are tougher than you may realize. There can be guys just as skilled but not as tough, and they just won't succeed. And then when you get to this level, there can be guys who have a degree of toughness that is generally, like, it is hard for people to like understand. If you have ever been hit in the liver hard, it is so awful. It is beyond words. Like, it sends a shockwave through your body. Even my own time, I remember getting hit with one of those, and you could feel it, like between your toes and underneath your feet. Like, it is a very, very specific kind of pain. The liver is surrounded in a bundle of nerves. When you drive something through that, it just through the body. It is very, very difficult. Dude, there are just some people who can deal with this shit. I don't know how else to tell you, and it comes with practice. It comes with understanding self. It comes with some mental toughness. It comes with maybe some genetic predisposition for certain kinds of durability, organ durability or otherwise. But in general, the thing that's just really hard for people to wrap their head around is, like, they have like elite fighters who are tough by fighter standards, which I think Gaethje would very much qualify. You don't know people like that. There's no one in your orbit that that's like that. I mean, unless you know somebody on SEAL Team 6 or some shit, and even then they're probably not like that. It's very, 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 very special. Nogueira was like that too. Nogueira, go back and look at Nogueira fighting Crow Cop, and, like, he was taking some big punches, or I should say kicks to the liver, and not all of that went well. I mean, he ended up on his back, although he ended up winning the fight from there. But like you cannot teach what Nogueira had. Like, Gaethje cannot do a seminar and then explain to people how to deal with this. You can have a seminar and show people heel hooks. You can have a seminar on the jab, footwork. You can have a seminar on wrestling. You can have a seminar on, weight training for combat sports, or any skill that can be taught. There's nothing he can do to show you that, except maybe ways to tighten up the core and then, practice that a little bit. But like the short answer is he's a mutant. And it's not a very scientific answer, but it's honest to God the truth. Now, the second part is the one where I don't agree with him. If you didn't see this, what Gaethje, I saw this one. Gaethje basically argues, I think it was to Joe Rogan, maybe, yeah, I think that's right. Or no, maybe it was somewhere else. But in any point, I remember the clip because a friend sent it to me and I watched it, where he basically argues like, oh, Ilya's done not because the damage that he took was so severe that he'll not be the same. It's that once you show somebody you can break through this wall, anybody else is going to be able to walk through that. Or not anybody else, but like other elite fighters are going to be able to walk through because now the mystery is gone. That can happen when someone's on the come up and they get fraud checked. This was not a fraud check. That's not what this was. And if you're making the argument that if he took so much damage, he couldn't possibly get right after this, that is fine. You can make that argument. I don't know if it's true, but that's not an implausible argument. But the implausible one would be, for me, like I just created a blueprint. Now anyone's going to be able to solve it. Like, dude, Ilya's going to adapt to this in all likelihood, right? He's going to look at this and be like, how did this happen to me? And I suspect that he's going to make some changes as a consequence. Now, if the argument is that the too much damage means it won't matter what he does, then you can make that argument. But that's not the argument Justin's making. He's making the argument that I wrote a blueprint and now you just have to follow it. And I don't buy that. I don't buy that. Ferguson was much older. Ferguson had been resting on his chin for a long time. You know what I mean? Like he was kind of due for like a big beating. And so he was, he had a long history of taking some big punches. This was not that. This is one event where he got hit real hard a bunch of times. But unless the argument is that has changed him physically, the blueprint argument to me seems very, I don't think it's very strong. Luke, when you went on Joe Rogan's podcast, it seemed that you two had a solid professional relationship. I know he had spoke highly of your work many times on his show. In recent times, as you become more and more critical of his politics and worldview, and rightfully so, it made me wonder, have you ever reached out to him professionally to get a comment from him or for him to be on the record or to come on your show to debate any of it before you began blasting him? No. The reality is this. There was a while there where after I went on, even before that, where he would text me back and forth. Like I remember one time, I've said this before, I was like tweeting about like a new computer and he texted me like, oh, I just got this computer. You should check it out, blah, blah, blah. He was real friendly. And then one day he just stopped responding to texts. Nothing happened. I didn't say anything. I mean, to my knowledge, I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. Like nothing happened. Nothing happened. And he just stopped returning texts. And so I kind of got the hint. And then there was like at least a couple more times, where I would let a couple months pass or maybe even more than that. And I would try again. And it was just no dice. And I was like, okay, well, I guess this is done now. I mean, listen, and I'm not like, that's life, dude. People want to talk to you. Great. If they don't, like the last thing I want to make someone do is talk to me if they don't want to talk to me. You know what I mean? Like it feels weird to try and do something like that. He just stopped responding. So like, okay, that's where we are now. I'm not going to hunt him down and be like, you got to give me an explanation for why all of a sudden we were talking and now all of a sudden we're not. He made some kind of decision about it and you'd have to ask him what it was about. I don't know. I've got my theory certainly, but it's just a guess. I don't know. And yeah, ultimately, he chose silence. So silence it is. Luke, in MMA and sports more generally, athletes have much more longevity than they used to. That is true. While we marvel at fighters extending their fighting primes well into their 30s, doesn't this seem like a double-edged sword, namely the added damage they'll now take? I really don't think, this whole Dustin Poirier situation is kind of like this too. And I know everyone's going to make that out to be like an alcohol problem, which clearly it obviously is. In very unique and special ways. I accept that. But I think that there's just a lot. I think there's a lot of guys out there who finished their UFC careers who are dealing with the after effects of damage, and they're dealing with it in different ways. Some healthier than others, some not at all. And I think it's fucking them up, whether you know it or not, whether it becomes public or not. Like, we're very aware of the public ones, like the BJ Penn situation, right? Obviously. And I'm not saying that Poirier is down that path right now. That's not, I mean, there's a pretty big difference between having one incident in an airport, which is not fucking great, versus like whatever's happening with Penn. It's just very, very like much further down the rabbit hole. But like, you know, can I be honest? Like, I'm really worried about Max Holloway after his career is over. Like, dude, I'm sorry. I don't give a shit who you are in terms of how tough you are. Like, it's one thing, we talked about Justin Gaethje, right? It's like, it's one thing to be like, I'm so tough that I don't give up under extraordinary duress. And that is something that speaks to maybe some genetic components of who they are, some character development, you know, for sporting purposes as well, the union between them. But dude, there is no getting around that if you take that kind of abuse later on in life, you are going to have to answer for it. You are going to have to answer for it one way or the other. And they all kind of think, I'm not going to have to answer for it. You are. So, I mean, I think with what's happening with Poirier is probably a few things. It looked to me like, you know, again, I'm speculating. I don't know this, but at least I'll say this. It seems to me at least plausible that camp was kind of holding things together, and the sort of like that fighting lifestyle was kind of holding it together. And then you take that away and it just changes the whole ball game. I think that's probably part of it. I think the other one might be alcohol specific. Maybe it's got something to do with any other kind of recreational drugs, pharmaceutical or otherwise, that he's on. But then the other component to me is, dude, he took a lot of damage in his career. A lot. Like, the guy's been fighting since he was a teenager. You're not going to get out of that easily. This is why, man, again, I made this point in my video I made about him. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, you know, let's have an argument about fighter pay. I'm not going to do that. But I think the one thing I would say is not so much specifically about that, but rather like what Khabib did. That is, or even St. Pierre pushed it a little too far, but like what Khabib did is perfect. I know it left you and I wanting, oh my God, he retired so early. He could have won so many more fights. He could have, yes. Guaranteed he could have won a bunch more fights. No question in my mind. Maybe even gone up to 170. Who knows, right? But the way to make this work is to get in, get money, and get the fuck out quickly. This is not something you want to do for a really long time. This is a depletion engine. It will only take from you. And the reason why I'd like getting in and getting money and getting out, you're still getting depleted in that way. Like, you still might get knocked out in training or in a fight. You might still get your shit rattled, you know, for years on end in sparring. But if you contain the damage, you contain the drop off, and then you can, you know, and if you make a bunch of money, like the trade kind of works a little bit for certain people. There's a little bit of a trade-off if you do it right in quality of life, but you got a bunch of money and then you limited the damage, fine. But when you begin to be like, oh, I'm just going to do this for a long time, and you're doing it for whatever reason, like, again, even with Poirier, even if Poirier made a bunch of money, maybe he still wanted to do it, you know, just to stay sober, or do it to, you know, who knows, just to be active, or because he loved it. You know, that's a lot of times that's just that. They just love it. But dude, this is not a thing you need to love like that. This is a thing you need to use for money and exit as quickly as you possibly can. It will destroy you. It will fucking destroy you. It is meant to destroy you. That's what it does. The sport, the industry, everything, whether UFC was in charge or not. It's not even an argument I'm making about them. It's just what it is. And I just don't think people really have wrapped their head around the idea that, like, oh, you know, you'll see guys retire and then, you know, I guess they'll ride off into the sunset. Nah, bro. I hear a lot of stories about a lot of former UFC fighters, MMA fighters. Again, it's not even UFC specific. Guys who had long careers, struggling, orthopedically struggling, cognitively struggling, emotionally struggling, you name it. I hear a lot of stories. And I just think what's happening in Poirier's particular case is like how it extended. But Yeah, man. I think guys getting later careers in their 30s in other sports, maybe that's not as big a deal. And certainly I understand it's complicated to be like, oh, we should narrow the window in which guys can make money. But dude, they want to make money what they can on the front end, and they want to make this as long as they can. And you're just not going to get out of this easy. It's just not going to, it's not going to treat you like that. You can only lose to the game. So make the loss as minimal as you possibly can. You've talked about, yeah, what makes an educated jab, what makes for an educated low kick. Same kind of thing, really, right? You're throwing it with intention. Um, you're not just flicking it out, right? You're kind of you're using it for all the things that you might need to, disrupting people's rhythm. You're methodically opening up their stance. You might be methodically trying to use that to set up an angle. You might be using that to disguise and then throw a Superman punch, or whatever the case may be. But you're just throwing it with intention and using that weapon in thoughtful ways that it can be, which you can measure distance with that too. But a lot of guys just, I'm going to throw it and I'm not going to think about how I set it up properly, or how it should be part of an overall offense, or when it's valuable versus when it's not. Or I'm just going to throw it out there when a guy is, pushing into me, and then you get countered with a punch off the leg kick. Like, that is the problem. But in many ways that we understand what a jab can do when it's an educated jab, a low kick is not quite the same, obviously, but it does a lot of the same. That's why, dude, like, can you win a UFC title with a jab and a low kick? If they're good enough, yeah, you can, because they both kind of bring the game into a managed affair where you're setting rhythm, distance, angles, setting up offense, disrupting their rhythm, tearing apart their leg depending on or the calf depending on what it is, getting out of the way of their offense, like moving them, turning them, all the things that we understand an educated jab to be with intention. It's the same kind of thing. Luke, do you feel there's a place for straight white males in the left's move even further to the left? That's the only place for them. How do you survive in a movement that is predicated upon the belief that white men were and are the problem? Guys, let me ask you something. Does it look like they're rejecting the advocacy that I'm offering them? I mean, I don't work with any particular political party or any political action committee or really any entity. I just do it on my own. But does it look like they're not receptive to it? Does it look like they're asking me to identify myself as a problem? I understand after the first kind of woke one that there was this focus on identity to such a degree that a lot of people may have felt of a certain type alienated from that particular movement, and I recognize that is not what is happening now. That is not what is happening now. Yes, it's a multiracial coalition. Yes, it's a multi-ethnic coalition. It's a multi, I mean, you name it, from backgrounds. Yes, it is those things. But it is very, very clear that this new particular left movement is not falling. I mean, depending on what kind of media you consume, this might be news to you. Not you personally. I'm not trying to be shitty to you. I apologize. But what I mean is that's not what's happening now. What's happening now is a very clear-eyed view about the problem of how power is addressed and who has it and what has to be done about it. And they're looking for all volunteers. It's an all hands on deck moment. And it is very, very difficult for me to believe that making housing affordable, making groceries affordable, making healthcare, if not a right, accessible, that keeping Israel in check and not doing foreign wars, like, there is a lot to be gained by a lot of different demos from that one, including but not limited to this one. They're not mad at me at all. They're not telling me to go pound sand at all. They're not asking me to go, kneel before the council of woke before we can let you into this circle of friends. Like, none of that is happening. They want this new version of what we have now, and I think it's a response to the failures of the previous version, they are intimately focused on getting people in place who look like me. And I mean, like, how do you explain Graham Plattner's rise in Maine? Oh, political forces put him there. Okay, maybe. How does that even work? Does it look like they're telling him to go fuck himself? They're trying to defend the guy after he got shown to be having literal Nazi tattoos. Does it look like they're telling you now that kind of a thing is a deal breaker? And there might be a debate to be had over whether that's even a good thing. But putting that to the side, did it look disqualifying to you? No, it did not, did it? It is not. That's not what's happening here. I don't know how people feel when they watch other news channels or read other alternative sources. I don't read Breitbart every day. I don't know what. There's a lot of fear mongering about the rise of the new left. And again, I have some questions about some of the things that they've said or plan to do or have otherwise advocated. One more time, it is not about like, oh, I'm in love with this candidate or I'm in love with that candidate. I have certain policies and political objectives that I want to see created. And, you just try to find the best way to get those things addressed. But this is not 2014. We are in a very, 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 very different place now. And I just don't know how you can look at, for example, what the Working Families Party is advocating and think that this is in contravention to the needs and desires of the average white male voter, adult white male voter, and really in any part of the country. I just don't know how you could make that argument. Like that they're not rallying around this now. They're rallying around who the fuck can help us. Let's get them to the front of the line. Now, whether their ideas are appealing to you, as a very specific policy proposal, have a debate over that, have scrutiny over that, hold their feet to the fire about that. But like, oh, well, this is, woke 1.0 where, you have to apologize, like we're going to make everything through some kind of, individualized lens of your genetic inheritance. That's just not what's happening right now. It's not. That you might be seeing a multiracial coalition in terms of people who are going for office is true, but they're advocating, at least in theory anyway, they're advocating for the kinds of things that working people of all varieties need. I don't know what this is. I can never think of questions when this is posted, but don't worry. My mind will be flowing mid or post episode. All right. I'll take that. All right. It's my wife. Let's see. Well, yeah. Just okay. Look, a win over Ian Garry means Islam passes Silva's 16-fight win streak. Assuming he does Islam pass Silva on the GOAT list, or does he need a few more title defenses? Man, he might. He might. Islam is so fucking good. He's so good. I would have to look a little closer at their records to give you like a firm answer, but because we're now talking about Islam in a second weight class, and yes, Silva had success up at 205 at times as well, quite famously, but he might. Again, I don't want to give a bullshit answer and like, oh, I have to take it back later, but I think what Islam is doing up a weight class. And again, this is the thing about Ian Garry, dude. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Two things you need to remember about this guy. Listen, do I love his social media presence? I don't know who does. I don't know who does. Who's like, yeah, there's a new post from Ian Garry. Isn't this fucking awesome? I mean, that doesn't happen. So that's one. But the truth is, he's so defensively sound. Really, really good defensively. Very good takedown defense. Very good footwork. Very good range management. Dude, those are big problems to solve. And you're like, well, if anyone's up to the task, it's Islam. And I would pick Islam to win, of course. But like, Islam's going to have to work. And I'd be shocked if Islam didn't win. But I'd be really surprised if Islam didn't have to work for it. I just think that's kind of inevitable. So that's the first thing I'll say. And I think the second thing I'm going to say is, dude, that shit right now, what Islam is doing, standing a post and being like, just bring number one contenders to me. This is, to me, the hardest thing to do in MMA is to be a UFC weight class champion and they send number one contenders, not star versus star. Not this guy's moving up from a different weight class and he's a champion. And he's trying to do just have a great one night. No, the guys who put in the hard yards in the weight class and beat the right guys to move themselves up the ladder, beating those guys when you've got a target on your back, frankly, for years, but certainly, by the time you become a champion, like they just are, everyone's dissecting every piece of minutia of your game. Dude, that's real championship material right there. So, like, honestly, again, I would have to look more closely between them to see exactly how they hold up. But if Islam were to, in the minds of the collective MMA fan base, media, industry, surpass Silva, he's not doing it by ducking smoke. This is, to me, oh, what about what happened with Ilya? And again, I mean, he got already, I guess that's completely done. He's fighting the most deserving guy, and that to me is the most challenging thing that a champion can do. I have seen it too many times. Oh, so and so is not that good, and then they give that guy the fight of their fucking life. We'll see. Do you think RAF will negatively impact the quality of fighters MMA will get? I feel the more it takes off, the more high-level wrestlers go there instead of getting punched in the face. I mean, then I hear they've got some pretty big purses too. Maybe. I think it's a little too small to really worry about that. But, because right now, who are they getting that they left UFC for? Colby? That's not exactly like a terrible loss at this stage. So I don't think we're there yet, but honestly, if it really takes off, yeah. I mean, the thing is, if it really takes off, I wouldn't be surprised if UFC tries to buy him out and then just make it all in-house and then they just make money off that too. But then at some point it becomes like how much of that is still draining from the MMA product. So that's a little harder to say, but right now it's not a threat. No, not in that sense. Good question. Thoughts on Ian Garry signing with Eddie Hearn? Do you think that this will hinder his career opportunities at the UFC? I mean, I have mixed feelings about this whole thing because, first of all, if Ian Garry beats Islam, I mean, Dana's head might explode. First of all, it'd be your pound for pound number one guy losing, which is not the end of the world if another guy takes the star power, but it'd be a number one pound for pound guy losing, and it'd be the guy who's now signed with Eddie Hearn. So in that case, Eddie would have two champions under his belt, two UFC champions. I mean, that would drive UFC probably insane, to kind of think about there. But what do I think about it? I mean, dude, the thing about Eddie is this: I'm just not sure what his play is. Listen, like all promoters, literally every single promoter, he lies and obfuscates and makes arguments that are sometimes true, sometimes disingenuous, whatever he needs to promote his interest. That's what promoters do. That's what they do. That's what all of them do. And again, as I said a million times, the better they are at being a promoter, the more they actually do that. And I hear these interviews, and there's just a lot of things that I like what he says, about he went after Bisping being you got to support these fighters. You can't tell them to just lay down. I like his moxie. I like his attitude. I like the messaging. But as we've kind of discussed before, even if you want to imagine that Eddie's got very pure intentions, and let's just say for the sake of argument, he does. I realize you could have another argument about whether he does, but for the purposes of this moment, let's just say that he does. He does have, in that particular posited scenario, he's got genuine intentions. How do you really make that work in an adversarial way against an organization that has all the leverage? I'm not, maybe he's got a plan. Maybe all this rocking the boat ends up proving that if you really rock the boat and you really go to the mat and you really make a show of it, UFC will bend or something. Like, I guess, again, going back to the Mamdani comparison, let's judge this movement by the fruits that its trees bear, right? Let's just see what it ends up doing. I feel like, having seen other other managers who repped high-level guys, and these were not factory guys, where like they were acting like brokers. I'm not talking about the ones who've got like 100 people on a contract. I'm talking about the people who got like one or two. And I've seen the way that they operate, and the common denominators here are not exactly what I'm seeing from Eddie. And so that gives me pause. But I really do. I appreciate the messaging and the advocacy. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to work. My little girl got me this. She got me 8 stickers for Father's Day. How about that? Eat shit. Someone asks a follow-up, a similar one. How many UFC fighters does Eddie Hearn have under contract by the end of 2027? If things go well for Ian or Tom, he could have 4, 5, 10. How many champions is the question? How many champions does he have? That's a little harder to say. But how many? If he could have a bunch. I mean, now they're probably getting ready to sign. I seriously doubt Gary's going to be the last of these. The only question is, how many does Matchroom want to take on to be able to like really affect change for them? And I think that there's just going to be a natural like bandwidth limit to what an organization like that can take on, Someone's asking about the court case. Well, a bunch of managers testify that Dana hasn't been involved in matchmaking basically since 2018. I haven't even had a chance to read about it yet, so I don't have a comment. I've got like general views, but I have nothing interesting to share because I've just not had a chance to lean into that. Similar kind of question. Do you think Eddie has pure intentions with Aspinall and Garry? I don't think any promoter has pure intentions, or any manager has pure intentions. You know what I mean? Like, dog, if you work in combat sports, there's a real good chance that you don't have pure intentions. But that doesn't mean you don't deliver either, right? That's not the question. Is not, are they pure of heart? Probably not, bro. They work in combat sports. However, that doesn't preclude them from making a meaningful contribution. Do you think that if Topuria would have fought against Paddy, we would have seen similar limits to his power and physicality at 155, albeit with a win over a less skilled opponent? Maybe. The thing is, it's like Gaethje was hittable to the body, but he didn't take a ton of damage. Well, he took some. But most of the damage he took was to the body. Like, he didn't get landed on super clean in the face, whereas Paddy would. You know what I mean? So it's like, is Paddy really tough? Yes. Yes, we've seen that. Very tough. No question. You can say whatever else you want about him, but he's tough. But his defense here is real poor. And a guy like Topuria should be able to find that and just send that shit into orbit. So, is there a question about his power translating up at 155? Maybe a little. Maybe about his size generally. But I still don't think you're going to get anything more than a beatdown with something like that. Do you think UFC matchmaking is still primarily merit-based, or has it shifted more towards short-term entertainment and brand value? Good question. And if that shift has happened, do you think it's actually working? A good example to me is lightweight. Justin got the push because it made for a bigger feel-good story, while Arman seemed like the more merit-based choice. I mean, that's obvious. He didn't seem like the more merit-based choice. He was the more merit-based choice. That doesn't mean that Gaethje's win is not phenomenal, but like, if we're just asking who earned that title shot, it was Arman. It was not Justin. If the UFC had gone strictly by merit, do you think Arman might be champion right now? Possible. And does the Justin example show the UFC now values narrative over competitive logic? I think what I would say is, look what's happening, for example, we just talked about it with Islam and Ian Garry. Ian Garry, to me, is not like setting the world on fire here, at least not stateside, but he's the most deserving guy, and they gave him a title shot, not not too early, not too late, right on time. Who could complain about that? I'm not complaining about that. Is anyone else complaining about like, oh, I wanted to see Islam fight someone else? Okay, he's fighting the right guy at the right time. Period. That's just a reality. So it's not like they're abandoning that, right? Month to month. What I think you should pay attention to is at certain intervals of the year or on individual cards of significance, they definitely play around. So let me give you an example. Again, Justin proved to be something special on the UFC White House, but going back to 324, again, by the rules of how we understand meritocracy in the UFC and combat sports, did Justin Gaethje and and Paddy Pimblett, did they deserve to fight for an interim title? They did not. That was just made up. Like, in other words, in order to make that UFC 324 card, which remember was the debut on Paramount Plus, right? Remember that. They kind of massaged the matchmaking a little bit in a direction that I think they felt was going to deliver action for that card, and maybe like setting up people for future opportunities if they can get the job done as well. In a similar vein, you look at this White House card. Now, it all ended in finishes. And again, the main and co-main event had like massive results. I think we can all agree. But, some of those fights just didn't need to be made. Like Kyle Dawkins and Bo Nickel just didn't need to be made. And, even the Josh Hokett and Derek Lewis fight didn't need to be made. Like some of that and other ones too, Michael Chandler and fucking Hoofy. Like what was like those, like, don't get me wrong. Did I watch those fights and be like, oh, these fights are terrible? No, but like they're matchmaking for a particular calendar event in a way that isn't necessarily all that meritocratic. Not at the top. Even again, Justin pulled off an upset, but that was also not the fight that was supposed to happen. So I'm trying to say, it's not like they've completely abandoned this. It's not like they've just like, oh, we're just not going to do this shit anymore. We're gonna just make up, whoever we want to give fights. They've always kind of done that when they felt they needed to. I do think you see it more now, and I think it tends to be kind of centered on individual names they might want to promote or events where they want to produce a certain kind of look for the fights themselves. More than they ordinarily would. But a promoter, trying to follow a strict rule book about how fights are made and then working outside of that when they needed to, that's not new. I think they've turned that up a little bit, maybe even a lot, but I don't think they've turned that up to such a degree that that's now the dominant way that fights are made. I still think the dominant way fights are made is just the traditional way which we understand it, but they'll definitely massage it when they need to. And let me say something about that too. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. It can be. It can be a very bad thing. It can also be a good thing if done the right way. Scott Coker in Strikeforce was kind of famous for this, where they would give guys tune-up fights. That was not the fight that should have been made, but it made one of their stars look good, and it produced, exciting action on that night. That's just part of fight promotion for certain fight promoters. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a bad thing all the time. Now, it can be bad if they're just promoting people that don't deserve to be there at all, and you're just wasting everyone's time, and it doesn't produce the right action, and you're doing it too much. So, it's one of these things where, like, is this practice happening? Sure. It's not necessarily bad by itself, though I do think it's happening more, but I don't think it's hit a tipping point either. Not yet. It looks like Gaethje's plan against Ilya was a lot of level changing to collar ties, to uppercuts or feinting level changes, then big right hands. That's right. Also getting him on that back foot and getting him to plant or even move in both cases. If Ilya threw knees, he could have disrupted or discouraged a lot of Gaethje's level changes to uppercut plan. That's true. And if he threw high left kicks, Ilya could have disrupted Gaethje's right hands. Also true. Was Ilya's potent but limited weapons always going to eventually do him in? This is a wonderful question. And I think that these guys who are trying to win by being superior boxers in MMA, they do clearly have a leg up in a lot of ways. They just have a smoother, typically, obviously Topuria's last performance is not quite to this degree, but in general, they've got this ability to manage distance and enter the pocket and put themselves close enough to do real damage, right? There's a real value to having that boxing, but then they end up just like, oh, I'm just going to win fights this way. And it's like, You need to win fights however you can win fights. Not just like I'm going to force a certain kind of style because I'm so good at it, I can beat anyone with it. Well, it turns out you can't. Turns out you can't, actually. Turns out you might need to have the requisite other skills and then dial down some of the boxing depending on who your opponent is. And again, that boxing thing is good because it works for a lot of different people. But as you can see, it's got limits too. Part of it is I just think people who have a boxing-centric MMA style, I think they get hit more. And I think the stats speak to that. They just naturally put themselves in the line of fire and the closeness to their opponent that makes damage unavoidable. So you need to have a real good answer for that damage. And if the answer is, I just beat people up before they can do that to me, yeah, that's great against lower level guys, but it's not going to work consistently at the top, obviously. Yeah, dude, like you need to have other skills when you need to have other skills. And I think there's just so many of these guys that are good boxers that just kind of want to force that on top of every fight. And maybe they even win the fights in certain cases, but they end up taking too much damage as a consequence. And here you have a case where he took too much damage for Ilia Topuria and he fucking lost. Someone's asking, do I think the Eddie and Dana feud is real? Yes. Yes. He's like, well, they both answered to Turkey. That doesn't mean shit. They still hate each other. Should MMA judges keep falls in mind while scoring a round, even if a ref hasn't taken a point yet? No. My understanding is you're not supposed to take into account anything like that. You're just supposed to take into account like your job is, unless there's other criteria that come into play, we've all been over this, your job is to assess damage. And if the ref is saying that it's legal and there's no other way which to view it, then that's just what it is. No. Let's see here. Bigger upset, Strickland over Khamzat or Gaethje over Topuria? I'm going to say Gaethje over Topuria, personally. I'm not sure what the odds speak to. Strickland beating Khamzat is, I mean, first of all, he did it via split decision, right? So he had to squeak it out. He did it, but he squeaked it out. Dude, Gaethje fucking stopped him. And Topuria was higher up on the pound-for-pound chart, too. Like, yeah, it's that one. Thoughts on Gaethje's passive income comments and saying he wants the UFC to buy a business and let him run it? Conor said something similar after he beat Eddie. He wanted equity in the company. I don't know what these guys are thinking. I mean, shoot your shot, right? Closed mouth, don't get fed, but like we all know nothing's going to happen, right? Like they're just like, it's like, oh, the UFC should do this for me. TKO should do that for me. And it's like, those are not necessarily bad arguments. They're just like, TKO is going to look at that and be like, we don't fucking care. You know what I mean? Like, I've said this to you guys, you know this, and I don't want to repeat this more than I have to, but I'm just going to say it one more time for people who might be new here. The only way you are going to get TKO, because it's really not even UFC at this point anymore. The only way you're going to get TKO to pay you more money is under the legal threat that they have to. You know what I mean? In other words, like there is, some kind of judgment from a lawsuit. That's one way to get money, or from, you get injunctive relief and a judge shortens all of these contracts to 1 year, right? And now your pay will go up just because you're by virtue of that. Or, you develop a union and then they're forced to bargain with a collective bargaining agreement. And there's some debate over how good that would change the pay. But you know what I mean? Like that is how you're going to get more money. You have to make them. But just getting out there in the media and saying like, I'm entitled to equity for some kind of a sort of a shell company or whatever. I mean, I guess there's no harm in saying it, advocate for yourself or whatever, but like, it's just totally unrealistic. They keep thinking that the best way to get paid the most amount of money is to just kind of, hey, play nice. And if I'm not playing nice, then I might just play distant and I might play, some kind of media game, but they don't give a shit about that. They know media games will fade. That this question being asked will not be asked next week. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to be a thing. And they know that. They know that. You have to make them. By the force of law, you have to make them. Simple as that. Anything short of that, you're wasting your time. Would Dustin unretiring be a good or bad idea at this point? It'd be an extremely bad idea. Him versus Justin for the trilogy, both retire after seems like it'd make a lot of sense. No, I think that's a very, 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 very bad idea. I think that if you are using the sobriety that is necessitated from being in a fight camp and or a fighter lifestyle, then you don't have sobriety. You just have a Band-Aid. And then this will eventually come to an end. And then you're just right back where you started. And now you've added even more damage from a potentially very, very vicious fight with Justin Gaethje. And I want to make this clear one more time. I know a lot of people keep thinking this is just an alcohol issue, or maybe just a family issue, or just a one-time issue. And it's got nothing to do with the damage that he took. I just don't believe that for 2 fucking seconds. I don't believe that even a little bit. Not at all. Putting more damage on him, even if he was like, well, you know, even if he was financially compensated for it in a great way, is a terrible, 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 terrible idea. Terrible idea. The last thing he needs is brain damage. The last fucking thing he needs. And who knows? Remember, last time he fought Justin, he got head kick KO'd. God only knows what that did to him. Imagine if that happens again. No. Terrible idea. It will destroy him. This game is a game to get in, get hot, get cash, get out. That's it. There's no other way to play this safely. And even that is a little dicey. No. Putting him back up there is a horrible idea. What's this one here? I mean, let me answer this one. Can you see? Yeah. Why isn't what Josh Hokett's doing at heavyweight replicated more? Not all the characters and trash talk, but the idea of being a skilled, quick middleweight type of frame who moves up to heavyweight. Heavyweight is so low skill right now that I think many middleweights and skilled light heavyweights could be very disruptive and climb quickly to title shots at heavyweight. I mean, to be honest, this is kind of what Fedor did. Fedor was a middleweight. He was a middleweight. And, I mean, he never fought at middleweight, but like his body type, if he was like cutting and like trying to lose weight in the way that like modern best practices would have advised, he would have ended up there. But he just decided to maximize that explosion and that frame for its usefulness at heavyweight. This is what I mean. Like when Fedor was ahead of his time, he kind of understood that there were gaps even back then that he could exploit. So listen, the thing about Hokett is, you know, putting aside the controversies about his comments and just assessing him as an athlete, you know, he's a very good athlete, you know, 2-sport athlete in college and obviously flirted with the NFL for a bit, and he can wrestle, you know, that's well established. There's just not many heavyweights who are athletic in that particular way. Not everyone is going to be Fedor. I'm not saying Fedor and Hokett are equivalent in that sense, but like, you know, has some kind of, you know, excellent athleticism from a smaller frame that they can leverage against a bigger one. I think where it can be leveraged, it should. And I think it speaks to Hokett's, again, sense as a fighter that I still think he could be a little lighter, but, you know, he's exploiting a gap in the market here too. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. Now we get to the paid portion, if you'd be so kind, or the member portion, depending on how you want to define that. And we'll go from there. Oh, there's a shitload. All right, let's get to these. Who'd win the DMF title for low fight IQ decision? Dumbest motherfucker. A donk move that allowed a momentum shift. Ilya taking Justin to the ground through body shots were working as an example, but I'm sure there are better. I mean, dude, there's a million. How many times, forget one individual instance, how many times have you seen a situation where a guy rocks an opponent and then tries to take them down? This is so common as to be like, I wouldn't even know where to start listing examples. not only is that like a bad idea, that's like a bad idea that like has like almost like ubiquitous appeal. That is one that just drives me insane. Insane. And you see it constantly at the highest level. Though this case, the one you're describing, is maybe one of the more high profile versions of it, but it happens all the time. Rick Donkerson checking in. Thank you for becoming a member. Max says, who in your opinion is the current gold standard of UFC referees? That's a good question. I used to say Herzog, but I think I give it to Goddard these days. Do you think Herb deserves the heat coming his way lately? Goddard's pretty good, although the overruling of that doctor in the Ilya fight, I didn't love. I didn't really agree with that. So I think that deserves to be noted. I would say, I mean, it's probably him or Herzog. I'm trying to think who else it would be. I used to like the fuck was his name? Leon Roberts, but I haven't seen him in a while. Yves Levine at times was pretty good. I mean, I don't know what to say about Herb and the heat coming his way. I think that there are a lot of cases you can point to where you know, it just doesn't seem like the job that needed to get done was done. And then when you ask them about it, they get kind of indignant. At the same time, I've spoken to Herb a lot, and you know, one thing that is really just clear to me, not that he has said it in this way, but it's just very, very clear to me. I think I said this last week. So like, people just don't know the rules, man. They don't know the rules. But the problem is, even when they know the rules and you can tell that they weren't followed, that like the regulatory world just kind of circles the wagons and then doesn't do anything about it. I don't know what to say about the regulatory world anymore. I've just lost all faith in it. I've lost all, after they went to bat for the Ali Act changes and, you know, decided that releasing fighter pay was not in UFC's interest. And, you know, I mean, any number of things beyond that you can, like, I just don't trust them anymore. That's not to say I don't trust individual referees or things like that, but I mean, as like an enterprise, I'm not sure what to say about it, you know. Rick Donkerson, third time asking for money, but please explain how paying members can ask free questions. Tag Othello. Happy to support your hard work either way. Thanks, and go fuck yourself. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, just tag Othello. He's here. Now that the reflecting pool is greener than the Chicago River on St. Patty's Day, will RFK Jr. take his grandkids swimming there? Yeah, I don't think so, because it's walled off now. They put a fence up around it. I went and saw that thing for myself last week. I'm not sure what it looks like today. I don't really know, but that thing was so fucking green. You know, and again, it's like, it's such a low stakes thing where it's like, oh, the reflecting pool is, you know, I mean, how important is this? It's not relative to anything else of genuine importance, but it just sort of is emblematic. I mean, two things I would say in response to this. One is that like there was like a week or 2 week window where like the right wanted everyone to accept how beautiful Trump had made DC because he turned on a couple of fountains in a couple of places. Some of those fountains are no longer on, by the way, it should be clear. And dude, he has fenced up fucking everything. Logan Circle fenced up, DuPont Circle fenced up, reflecting pool fenced up. You can't see, like, he destroyed one of the wings of the White House and bulldozed it, and you can't see it. Like, the fucking ellipse is, there's still a huge barrier around that now. They're still pulling that fucking claw down from the White House. And then did you guys see the picture of the White House lawn today? Like that, and I know they're going to replace it, but like the whole thing is jacked up. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, okay, the fountains are on a Union Station. That's cool. They were on at Malcolm X Park, but that's been on and off, so that's inconsistent. There's another fountain that's just on the west side of the Capitol. I don't know if it has a name, but it's up these steps right off of the intersection of Louisiana and then Pennsylvania. They turned that one on. That's nice. Like, I'm supposed to believe that like all of that is beautifying DC. You got fucking troops with guns everywhere for no particular reason. Half the shit in the city. And the Kennedy Center, which he had to take his name off of. And he's such a petty fucking little bitch that instead of taking it off and then complying with the court order, they put a goddamn tarp in front of it. So now there's a fucking tarp at the Kennedy Center. It's like, oh, people want you to believe he's beautifying the city. Motherfucker, where? Where? I live in this bitch. Show it to me. Yes, the fountains are on outside of Union Station. Great. Great. Now what? What about all the other fencing that they're doing nothing about? All of the other places you can't go now. Like, what are we talking about? All the shit that's been destroyed. And then the other part too is like, it's like Obama tried what I thought was a smart solution that ultimately did not work. But the problem with Trump, and as I mentioned before, he just putting his name on the Kennedy Center, getting his friends to paint the bottom of the reflecting pool blue, taking over East Potomac Golf Course, God only knows what they're going to do to that. I mean, it needed renovations, so I don't think doing renovations is bad. But there was a company that was charged with that, and this is the point I'm trying to make: is like there's all these processes that have to be followed before the occupier of the office can touch any of these things. And he doesn't follow them. And because he doesn't follow them, he just goes by his own rules and the way he likes to do it, rather than following like a careful process that would ask, hello, scientific questions. What happens if we paint this shit blue and then the sun hits it? Oh, it's going to turn it fucking green. Like that, an environmental review process would catch that, but they don't want to catch that. They just want to do whatever they want to do by force, and then just, dare the courts to stop them later. And then, hello, this is what you end up getting. This is what it ends up being. And it's like, I just don't understand why people you can't grasp. This guy is not good at this. He did this whole thing to stay out of prison. It's got nothing else to do with anything else. He just didn't want to go to jail for his fucking crimes. So now he's back in power, and he got that. And now they're like, oh, he can lead us. He can't do shit. He can't do shit right. He's not good at this. He's not good at it for a lot of different reasons, not least of which is he just ignores rules that are there to prevent these kinds of errors. Jesus. Other than the English champs, why hasn't the UFC produced more European champs? Jan comes to mind, and Gustafsson came close, but that's about it. Well, I mean, how would you classify Hamzat? I mean, a lot of that was spent in Sweden. I realize that, he's from Chechnya and then Sweden, and now he's Dubai, but like there's that in mind. Australia is significantly smaller, and they've had 3. I mean, UFC goes to Australia more than they go to Europe is part of it. I think this is only a matter of time. Obviously Conor was a big deal too. I mean, arguably the greatest, not the greatest, but the most celebrated UFC fighter of all time is European, and there's Tom Aspinall as a champion. I get what you mean. Like there could be more given what's there. Australia is just a really special case. They just kind of exploded. I think that you'll see more and more, especially now that Europe's still kind of hot with MMA. I think you'll see more and more of it. Imavov might win, by the way, against Strickland. I'm not suggesting that he will, but like he could. And there'd be another example of, he is, I realize that he's, ethnically something else, but he's French, Do you think we'll help Venezuela since we run it? I think anyone banking on the idea that the Trump administration gives a fuck about what happens to the people of Venezuela just is so confused about how this works. Now, they might help with search and rescue with those 2 horrible earthquakes. I'm sure you guys saw the footage out of there. It looked so terrible. I suspect you'll get something on that regard. But it's a vassal state. They're there to take. Like this idea that like we're there to really turn it into something. They don't give a fuck. You got to, like, it's empire for empire's sake. It's not empire for Venezuela's sake. Had a chance to read the J. Swan Haberman book. I have not. I've seen the news around it, but I've not read it. Regime change. I've not seen it. I've not read it yet. Did Izzy get closer to Silva than Usman did to GSP? No. Usman got real close. I mean, Izzy is also the clearly right now the second best middleweight in UFC history. That's true. In the same way that Usman is, but I thought Usman got real close. I thought Usman got closer. I think the level, the duration of his championship reign and the quality of his opposition speak to that. Luke, are you one of the radical left lunatics who sabotaged the reflecting pool? No. At least the National Guard has something to do now. Yeah, they're still just standing around out there. Fucking sidearm at their hip. Just doing nothing. Luke, do you think UFC will remove Dustin from his broadcasting roles? I seriously doubt it. Okay. UFC might take him off of that. Although, they didn't do that for Chael when he had some of his issues, So probably not. And I'll just say this, like that podcast that he does and stuff he does with Paramount, if I know the people who are in charge there and the decisions that they make, they'll absolutely never do that. Now, that doesn't mean that Dustin himself might decide to go a different direction. But like, do I think that they're going to hammer him for this? No. But of course, you know, if it was BC offering to fist fight someone at a in an airport terminal dropping N-bombs, they'd probably fire BC with the quickness, you know. Luke, rank these people for how much you dislike them. 1 being the most, 3 being the least. Chud the Builder, Burt Kreischer, and Trump. I mean, you go Trump, Chud the Builder, and Burt in that order. Wait, 1 being the most. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate Burt like those other 2. I just find him unfunny. The other 2 are malignant. Thoughts on the DSA sweep in NYC? I made a video about this. Would you vote for someone like, her name is so hard to pronounce because it looks French, but it's pronounced like how a Spanish speaker would pronounce it. So it's, I think it's Chevalier is how you would say it in Spanish. I don't know. Who is great on Palestine, but believes police and prisons should be abolished and criminal aliens should not be deported. Yeah, she has some views that I just definitely don't agree with. So she has made a point, for example, on deportation. So someone pressed her, like, she doesn't believe in deportation. And someone pressed her, and the answer, like, why are you against all deportation? So we're not talking cases where, like, you know, oh, someone had a green card and they criticized Trump and then they threw him in ICE detention. I mean, anyone with half a brain is against something like that. But we're talking about something like, you know, even like, let's say a drug lord, or, you know, just a heinous criminal or something. Like, she's against deportation. I want to be very clear. I'm not. I'd be very much in favor of that. But her argument is that we have a justice system, and that if the justice system has any fairness, and if someone has committed a crime, then use the justice system in the way that it is intended to make them pay for it. But that if you begin to get into deportation, this is her argument, now you're saying that the justice system is only adequate for people of a certain geographic, you know, proximity or origin. And that means that there is a 2-tiered system of justice, to which I would reply, I suppose that means that there should be a 2-tiered system of justice. I mean, the idea that you're not allowed to, or that it's a bad idea to get rid of gang members. Like, again, I'm not talking about the ones where Trump was like sending, you know, gay hairdressers to some torture dungeon in the middle of El Salvador. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about like the real deal Holyfield. You know, like the idea that, like, yes, if we want to keep them in our prisons because they've committed crimes here and we want to address that, sure. But if there's, you know, for whatever reason, you know, and also what about prisoner swaps with other countries? You know, it's not exactly deportation as such, but it's a similar kind of process where there's an extra level of attention or a justice arrangement to get rid of them. No, I don't believe in any of that. No, I believe that deportations under the correct circumstances are actually a very valuable tool to manage immigration affairs. However, what I'm just going to say is, one, if Mamdani is any indication, a lot of the stuff they're going to soften on by the time that they actually vote. And more to the point, I'm going to keep asking it, dude, how the fuck are we supposed to get affordable health care by just keep voting for the same assholes over and over and over again? Like this is the game now. This is the game. You're not going to get anything that matters as long as the existing political class is in power. Period. It's just not going to happen. And more to the point, this is not a senator who is running. This is a congressman. 2 years, you can throw him out if you need to. It's not some kind of unresolvable eternity. You know, this is, to me, wait and see what they do. And if they govern like fucking maniacs, then fine, throw them out, you know. But no. But I'm just trying to help everyone understand who's going to reign in Israel. Is it going to be Susan Collins? Is it going to be Randy Fine? Is it going to be Hakeem Jeffries? Who's going to do it? Do you see what I mean? And like, to me, that is an existential fucking question for the security of this country. Frankly, for the security of the world, if we're being honest about it. Who's going to do that? It's not a surprise to me that people like Daria Liza can be elected in a world where no one else will fulfill those functions. Luke, if you played for the national team of Colombia, and were awarded a penalty shot, would you take it? Fuck no. Why? So I could miss it and all of Colombia hate me? No, I'm good on that. Tom Aspinall went all in on an IG post with exposing Gane's tendency to consistently foul in many ways. Do you think UFC will do anything regarding this issue? No. It's up to Tom and his team to force the regulators to do more. Yeah. Hello from Edinburgh, Scotland. Dude, have you all seen the videos of the Tartan Army taking over the United States? It's so fucking glorious. They were in Boston. They drank that city dry. And then they were in Miami, just kind of, dude, shouts to the Tartan Army, man. They seem so fun. I wish they would have come to DC. I would have partied with those bubas. All right, hello from Edinburgh. Moses Itama is fighting Filip Hrgovic at the end of August. He's one of the next big stars in boxing if you fancy a trip over to see a future star ringside. Oh, I'm very familiar with Moses Itama. And Hrgovic is a good fighter. He gave Dubois a tough fight until Dubois eventually overcame it. I believe that's right. So he's a good fighter. So that's a good test for him too. But Itama, man, his athletic gifts are just, he's different. He's different. Luke, you've often said fictional literature is a weak point for you. Yes, it is. Do you plan to include fiction works in the book club? Not as of now. No. That's why it's a weak point, because I just don't make time for it. But I'm not opposed to the idea if the right one kind of came along. But for now, I don't think that's it. Luke, why the F are UFC fans so young relative to other fan bases? I really am not sure. You're not sure why young men are attracted to sanctioned violence? It's very easy to understand. Secondly, do you ever see yourself aging out of the sport aside from political reasons? Aging out? Aging out's harder to say. That's harder to say. I don't know about that. What's the first part of the question? Sorry. Oh, why are they so young? Dude, it's very easy to understand how sanctioned violence and violence as entertainment would be interesting to young males. That seems like the easiest inference in the world to make. That's going to be the audience that's going to be the most attracted to that 10 times out of 10. I think the interesting part is they were able to get a bit of a market share. And also I think on racial lines, if I said if I gave you a demo guy, a 20 years old, white guy, is he more likely to be watching boxing or is he more likely to be watching MMA? I mean, I think we all know the answer is MMA, but of course it could be boxing too. It's not to say that it wouldn't be, but they've been very good about that too. They're just, sanctioned entertainment violence and young men. I mean, if you know anything about young men, and when I was one, I'm not one anymore, but when I was one, how easy that was to see. They're very, 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 very adept at that. If you decide you can no longer stay in MMA coverage due to its right-wing ties, that way okay, I'll explain that one in a minute. Have you seriously thought about what you might do next? LTGP full-time? Love seeing Rogan squirm whenever someone bashes Trump. Let me make a point here. It's the fact that MMA is right-wing is by itself not really the problem. It's different than that. It is that, one, it's this ongoing thing that's being used to launder the Trump administration. And I just find that the ethical proximity to that is very difficult for me to accept. And then the other component here is just kind of this top-down culture of doing nothing about malfeasance ever at any point. And therefore, it just getting oxygen as a way. It's kind of funny, right? We talk about sports washing as a thing, World Cup. You can just use the World. You don't even go to combat sports. You can go to World Cup. There's obviously a lot of sports washing that happens there. And that's its own kind of issue. But combat sports almost by itself, without anything else, is sports washing. I've made this point many times. If you're very, very rich and powerful, but you've got a bad reputation, the very smartest thing you can do is to become a combat sports fan, at least pretend to, because they'll launder the fuck out of everything you do. They just don't care. No one cares. Absolutely nobody will ever care. It doesn't matter if it's rape. It doesn't matter if it's robbery. it can even be fucking murder depending on how powerful you are. Nobody cares, and they never will care. Like, not enough of them anyway. They'll never care. Like, yes, if there's some kind of, for some reason Greg Hardy became like, oh, we're really mad at the Greg Hardys of the world. Yeah, but there's like a million Greg Hardys in MMA, and most people don't say shit about that. Like, it's very weird that he kind of just became this one figure. But like, inherently, combat sports is a place where ethical concern goes to disappear. It is inherently designed to like and pulls from a world that makes that not merely possible, but is a central feature of how it works. Like, that is the thing. And so when you are elevating an entity in society that makes no effort at controlling for any of the kinds of forces that it elevates, and it elevates, I mean, just any number of horrible ideas and or norms that it tries to establish. Like, what is your responsibility when you see stuff like that? I don't really know what the answer is. I think I've come to the position that, like, I don't know what the point is of the kind of coverage I've been giving. Hey, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You hear me? Don't do that. She got the whipped cream out. She got the whipped cream out and was, like, I could hear the sound from the whipped cream thing. She was just trying to eat pure whipped cream. I caught her red-handed. People claim that they care about fighter pay, but no one cares. They don't give a fuck. You could explain to fans till they're blue in the face that some of the issues that they're experiencing, some of the more important ones that they're experiencing, are a function of monopoly. Nobody cares about doing anything about it. You can get people who just say the most racist shit ever, and there's no way that anyone ever does anything about it. If you have an enterprise that lifts these ideas and these practices and is a moral black hole because that's what it's designed to be, what are you doing if you're contributing to the elevation of that? Like, that's kind of where I've arrived. And there's no amount of media that I can give that will ever matter. Like, I've been doing it all this time, and look what it amounted to. Nothing. It amounted to absolutely nothing. And so now we just have this sport and this industry, and then this, like, it's not just MMA because it's boxing in that sense too, where like the whole thing is just designed and exists as this kind of place where bad behavior just goes to get disappeared or laundered, as long as someone is cutting a check. I don't know. Is that good for society? I'm asking. Like, I don't know. Like, is that good for society? That you can like something that would ordinarily be a very fringe thing in terms of that kind of moral calculus now being elevated to the highest places. And like, the basic modus operandi is, we're not going to care about ethical practices. We're not going to try and do this the right way. It's going to be an exploitation machine in every possible way. And we're going to elevate all of the most rancid ideas possible. And we're going to rehabilitate the worst characters possible. Like, is that good for all of us? I don't know. I don't know. And you might say, oh, well, that's why it's important to, to challenge that. But like, there is no challenging that. Like, it's done. We are now at a place where that is now, like, this will only be in place until somebody externally does something about it. Or if they sell the organization and like there's a whole new team that takes over that has a very different view on some of this stuff, or not, again, it's really hard to say. Or if they get broken up by, the FTC or the DOJ or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. But like, it's not that, oh, like, dude, NASCAR is right wing. I don't really watch NASCAR, but like, that is not the problem. Like, that's not even a problem. It's this world that is just a moral black hole. And there's no force within the industry itself willing to civilize it. So now we're just bubbling this thing to the surface and just letting it have this dominant effect more broadly. I don't know what that does. How underpaid is Sean O'Malley? Probably as underpaid as everybody else on that roster. But once again, dude, who gives a shit? No one's going to do anything about it. Who cares? Who cares? No one's going to do anything about it, except maybe like MMA FA will do something about it or, something like that. But short of that, nobody cares. Love from Canada, LT. What's your World Cup support ranking? Colombia, US, or US, Colombia? Anyone else? I have a soft spot for Mexico after Canada. I mean, I can't root for anyone else over the US, right? It's always going to be them first. But so it'd be US first and then Colombia second. And after that, man, I like these little ass teams that do well, like Curacao had their own goal. I saw Haiti hung 2 on, who was that? Morocco yesterday. Those are always fun. Josh Thompson made an interesting point. His issue with the Poetan stoppage is that for a foul strike, it should result in a reset and 5 minutes of recovery. This is huge in a title fight. That's an interesting one. I don't know what the brain damage argument is there, because that's not the same as like getting poked in the eye or kicked in the balls. And there may be like a medical explanation for why you can't resume, but that's something I would like to see explained by a doctor. Because if you could, I like that idea. Luke, rank these hypothetical Sean Brady fights for UFC 230. You mean 320? Brady versus Bonfim. Interesting one. Brady Amosov. I fucking love that one. And then Brady versus Bilal rematch. I also like that one. I mean, all of them are good. I'd rank Amosov 1, Bilal 2, Bonfim 3. Personally, just in terms of the ones I would like to see. Luke, longtime viewer here from first DC Jones fight. Love the journey from The Office to Barbas to drink of the day to this. Stay frosty, dogs. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. Love seeing BC go dark woke on his IG stories. Maybe I missed those. While keeping enough private, do you ever discuss topics about what's going on in the country right now or just work and family life? He's a man of integrity. Oh, all the time, dude. He and I are talking about the realest shit ever on our text message conversations. Oh, no. All the time. All the time. Reverse Twister was sinister. Oh, the Scottish one? Yeah. So many people are trying to turn in from that body lock and then just getting wrapped up in it. It's so great to see. Luke, been away for a bit. Do you think the CTE suffered during a fighter's career makes them more susceptible to problems? Of course it does. We know that it does. Did OJ kill his wife, or was it the CTE? I don't really know to what extent brain damage factored in, but it's pretty clear. Like the evidence showed he did it. Yeah, dude. Like, one more time was the question. Do you think CTE suffered makes them more susceptible to problems? Dude, it leads to all kinds of imbalances, not merely in the ability to reason, but it causes problems in emotional regulation. It causes problems with memory and focus. Like, it has a whole suite of cognitive problems that it can cause. Look, if you ever decide to leave the States, Vancouver, Canada will happily accept you. Would they? I don't think they would. Only downside is being in close proximity to Shaq Majori. That's funny. Can you explain striking offbeat like I'm stupid? Sure. I saw Justin Gaethje talking about it. There's different ways you can use this. But the basic idea is that a lot of guys strike on a rhythm, right? And if you try and throw when they're in that rhythm, you might get caught. You know what I mean? Like, you might get, like, you'll be at the mercy of what they're doing offensively. But if you can get in between them, right? Because I've got a natural rhythm, right, with my feet maybe, and I'm punching off that front foot, I go then. But if you can get in between that, right, you're waiting there. That's offbeat. I'm catching you between your beats. And there's, sophisticated ways to kind of even set this up or anticipate it or use it. But that's one of the key ideas, is I'm catching you between where you are the most defensively vulnerable, either with your weight, with your defense, with your anticipation, you might be opening because you might have gone on the first one, you know what I mean? Or like, you're just open in some kind of new way by virtue of what you're doing in between that. So you're catching them in between. Pulverizer, welcome to the party. The Poirier clip hit home. I've had to witness several family members spiral horribly due to alcohol abuse. Really hope Dustin gets meaningful help. Yeah, man. And I said this before, and I said it in the video too. Like, I've been a drunk. I mean, I don't think that's any kind of mystery. I probably got lucky at certain times too. I mean, I've never been arrested. I've never been in the back of a cop car, but and things have to go bad for you to be put there. But dude, I've struggled. I've struggled a lot with alcohol, so I certainly respect that. It's a tough problem, man. Like, and I had to get help to get out of it. So I hope he can get the same. Did Jerry O'Connell ever contact me about my rant? No, he never did. Eddie Hearn has spoken about adhering to the Ali Act. It's an American law. Are the UK promoters subject to it, or is it just based on an honor system with respect to UK fighters? The problem is if you have business in the United States, if you're doing it one way and then you have to do it and your business expands in different areas, it can become a problem to kind of undo certain things about it by the time you're back stateside. So it ends up having, again, the Ali Act doesn't affect British boxing per se, but it affects British boxing insofar as it's intertwined in the American scene. Became a friend today after chatting to you on IG about Super Chat. Oh, yes, I remember. Yeah, of course. The unbiased, uncrowned for having McGregor in studio. That $15 SC never made the air. Anyways, $20 for a real one. Thank you, Otzi. Yes, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing in terms of what it's going to amount to, but I'm trying. In the era of undeserved title shots, how did Kyoji not get one? He did. Asakura did. Lopez got 2 at 45. This was probably his last chance. I mean, he did against Demetrius. He did. I mean, I know you mean like since he came back. I don't know. I'm glad that they didn't give it to him. Like, he need to earn it. FIFA is scum, but I must say the games and overall vibe of the World Cup so far have been incredible. I share your opinion completely. Packed stadiums and international fans bringing much needed life to host cities. Totally agree. It's been really great to watch. Have lobbied El Sayed campaign to back combat sports reform for months. They agreed to put out messaging or maybe full policy. We're considering appearing on your show to do so. Emailed you about this. I have to go check the email. I may not have seen it yet. What was I going to say? Yes, I don't know whether they will or not. I hope that they do. But I mean, I don't know who's going to make combat sports regulation a priority. I guess we'll see. Rogan changes his phone number often, he says. Yeah, but I verified it. With others. I mean, what is stopping Jones booking a fight with Francis overseas? A court injunction that will stop it. If they lawyer up, they can contract technically. If they lawyer up, can the contract technically be enforced overseas? Yes. They allow RAF and UFC as a U.S. company. Yeah, no, they'll stop it. Couldn't help but notice your video about Zohran candidates. You mentioned Gaza more than any other issue like affordability and health. How much of that is family trauma versus key U.S. issue? I only brought up Gaza because, well, one, it was a really, really important issue. I mean, I think, one, people don't want to accept that there's a reckoning that's happening. For people who just couldn't decide to say no to genocide, you're now watching the wheels of justice begin to run them over. Okay, so that's a big part of it. The other part of it is, too, like, understand something. So Brad Lander, a Jewish guy, defeated Dan Goldman, another Jewish guy. Dude, Dan Goldman is Medicare for all. He wants to abolish ICE. He led, I think, either the investigation or the case in one of the Trump impeachments against Trump. So this is not like, some guy who's like, he's indistinguishable from some, center-right guy. Like, he's got a lot of bona fides that are legit on the left. But the problem is he just can't call genocide a genocide. And so that's why in that particular race, like focusing that particular between Goldman and Lander, that's why that particular conversation about Gaza is uniquely important. Because otherwise, Goldman's got a lot of good things going for him. But if you can't say no to genocide, we should all say no to you. Now, I realize that if you're in, a part of the country that is a distressed situation and you're looking for some relief, how important Gaza is to you may be of, debatable relevance. And I certainly respect and acknowledge that. But again, there's just no one who is authentically talking about the issues that also affect working families like I mean, there might be a populist on the right, but certainly on the left, like Working Families Party or DSA, like it's not the corporate Dems, and you know it's not. Like I know it's not, and you know it's not. Like it's not one or the other with them. They're the only ones who I take seriously on this, and they may prove to be frauds too. I guess we'll see. But it's like, dude, you know what you're going to get now with like, it's like the jury is not out anymore. Or I'm sorry, the jury is not still deliberating. Rather, the jury is out. It's clear what you're going to get. You're looking at it. Look around. Does that look good enough to you? Because the people who are in place, this is good enough to them. The Democrats only want to raise my taxes and focus on special interest groups and minority groups. They don't have a pitch for me. The corporate Democrats, I agree with. The other ones, the progressive ones, they definitely have a pitch for you. Company just downsized, and I was not on the chopping block today. Take my money while I got it. Thank you, bro. Wishing you nothing but luck with that shit. It's a tough job market out there. MK all day. Thank you, sir. Why did you quit martial arts? I'm a 32-year-old dad and BJJ purple belt, worried about injuries and head trauma from striking. How to fill that void? I got sick of feeling awful all the time. I know there's a lot of people who train combat sports and like, oh, I felt great. And for years I would feel great. But then it got to a point in my late 30s where it just stopped feeling great. It felt awful. And I was sick of it. I was sick of feeling awful. What did I use to fill that void? I didn't need anything to fill that void. When I'm done with something, I'm done with it. Like, done. I didn't need anything. Nothing. There was nothing that had to do that for me. When I was ready to walk away from training, I was ready to walk away. Do you feel a greater sense of responsibility during MK shows now that you are the main host? Yes. Interested in how your relationship to it has changed? Yeah. I mean, before it was, very 50-50, right? And now it's like I'm the on-camera kind of continuity factor. And therefore, like, what happens with MK one way or the other reflects much more on me than anybody else. Yeah, of course, dude. Of course. I don't know what to do about that except to just do the best job that you can with the time that you have. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how else to, I don't know what else to do. So I certainly do think about it. I certainly do recognize it's different, but like, I don't know. Wake up, Luke. You have Firewatch. Dude, I used to get so bitter when they'd wake me up, even when I knew I had Firewatch. Firewatch is like someone has to be awake at all times, like in the squad bay or if you're out in the field. And it's one person who typically takes an hour rotation in the middle of the night. You got to wake them up 10 to 15 minutes early for their rotation. They got to get their boots on and everything on. And then they got to get, they check you out and the next person comes in and they just got to be on duty. Someone's got to be on duty to watch that shit. And it was mess with your sleep so bad. Having a long extended jab like Ulberg, does it only apply when you're longer than the guy? I would think it opens up for one across counter or hook. It depends how you use it. It can be like Ulberg does a nice job with jab, hook, right? He's very, very good at that. It really just depends on to what extent you can manipulate it. And, and again, you might have to use other weapons to negotiate space and or maintain range. But yeah. Pros and cons of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've not studied it. I don't know. I appreciate the donation, but I'd just be giving you a bullshit answer. What was worse, Mortal Kombat 2 or MK Annihilation? MK Annihilation. Mortal Kombat 2 is so bad I couldn't finish it. I tried like 5 times to finish it. And I got pretty close. There's like 10 minutes left. I was just checked out. I couldn't do it. It's so fucking terrible. LT, what do you think about the back and forth between Hokit and Pereira? Who do you like in that fight and why? Probably Hokit. I think Hokit's a real big problem. I don't know what the back and forth was exactly. I mean, I guess they talk shit. I don't care about that. I think Hokit's a real problem for everybody. I mean, maybe we'll see how it goes against Gable. We'll see how it goes against Big Tom, Big Gon. I don't know, but like I think he's a huge problem for people. I attended a Ro Khanna town hall, asked about combat sports reform. Ro said it made sense, but didn't know issues well. Had staff give me card. I emailed them and they sent a message to legislative director in DC. Interesting. I'd be curious to see what happens with any follow-up you might have. If Ilya did a walk-off after the liver shot knockdown, would the ref have called it a knockout? So this question comes up where, like, can you induce one by walking off? I don't think so. But possible. So gun to my head, the answer is no, but I couldn't rule out that it could happen. The Weidman that beat Munoz would have beaten the past 6 middleweight champs. Same goes for Prime GSP for welterweight. True or false? True. The one that beat Munoz catches him with a slashing elbow standing coming in. It was so sick. I understand that Dustin fucked up royally, specifically what he's heard saying, but all these outlets covering this are about to rejoice and big up McGregor's return next week. Yeah, of course, dude. Like, nobody cares. Like, dude, this is what I mean. Like, nobody fucking cares. They might care about Dustin because they like him as a person and they don't want to see a guy like that, you know, suffering or in a distressed state or, you know, doing dumb stuff or saying N-bombs or whatever. But again, dude, I don't understand. There's like there is no, I just don't. This, we are in a different place now. There is no amount of internal pushback against anything like this possible anymore, for the most part, with maybe an exception here or there. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it anymore. To the Islam fans, Topuria got TKO'd by a Hall of Famer and number 1 contender. Islam got KO'd by a journeyman that was never in the top 10. Yeah, at a different point in his career. Topuria became a 2-weight division champ at 29, Islam at 33. Okay. But, like, you know, Islam would never lose to Gaethje. You know what I mean? Like, that would never happen. Islam is a documented cheater and a weight bully. Okay. Topuria has never cheated, to your knowledge. Never missed weight. Neither has Islam. Personally, I do not like either of them, but Topuria has a higher ceiling in MMA. I mean, he's younger, but I think after getting beat like that, I'm not so sure because, like, to your point, Islam did get KO'd. But that was early in his career, and he didn't take a sustained beating, and it kind of changed him. Like, where are we now on the other side? I don't know. Do you think Ian signing with our boy Eddie is a good career move? We've kind of been over this one. It's for endorsements only, but I feel like being with Eddie would cause a rift with UFC brass. I hope not for his sake, but it's just really hard to tell. Luke, your telling of Dustin's story was really great, but it made me wonder just how many fighters genuinely rely on fighting to escape, including the fighters that don't become successful, more than you know. Very, 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 very common. More than you know. Super, super common. I know you've said the UFC's right-wing turn made a lot of fans leave the sport, but how many up-and-coming fighters do you think also leave the sport for these reasons? Not as many. Not as many, because I think a lot of them are either don't care or are aligned you know, maybe in a centrist direction or just kind of put it out of their mind. I think there's a lot of that. I don't think that's really the case. I mean, again, how many, you know, there probably might be some effect, but I think of that particular population in the larger population that you're pulling from, I suspect that to be less of an obstacle. Has Brendan's politics shifted your opinion of him? People want me to talk shit about him, and I'm just not gonna. So I don't know what else to tell you. Would you consider going on Ariel's show? I've been on Ariel's show. I mean, not in a long time, but I've literally done it. Just want to say that all of the takes on the Dustin Poirier situation, yours was the best. I don't know if that's true. I got some hate mail about it, but thank you. Very insightful and fair. Thanks for keeping it real. Thanks. Like I said, I'll just repeat it here, dude. I've been a drunk, bro. Like, I've been a drunk, you know. I can just tell you, I don't know what it's like to be a fighter. I don't know what it's like to be famous. I don't know what it's like to have that head trauma. I don't know. But I've been a drunk, and I can tell you what it's like on that level, and it's a fucking terrible place to be, bro. Why does nobody, including fighters, know the rules? That part I don't really get. But you know what? I wonder how true that is across sports. Like, how many basketball players really know the rules relative to the refs, or in football? Like, a lot of people in American football don't know the rules either. You know, LT, great take on Justin. As published writer, sports fan, been thinking how strong your journalism, podcasts, and insights are. Would you consider writing a book on UFC history and politics? Maybe. It would be excellent. You have some good journalism chops. Thanks. I mean, maybe if the right offer came along, sure. But I've heard writing a book can be quite a bear. I don't know. Who would read such a thing? I don't even know. Dealing with the devil of addiction right now. You're the only voice of reason in my life. Appreciate you, Luke. I'm sorry to hear that, bro. Please go get the help the right way if you can. Please, please, please. I've been down, you know, I don't know about your road, but I've been down a road like this one. And help is real. Help is real. And you can feel it You know, in some cases, it takes time, obviously, to get the full weight of the help, but even a little bit of help can feel different very quickly. So please go get some, okay? Who is a fighter you would like the world to know more about? Life story, fight style. I don't really feel like there's anybody underexposed. I mean, you could maybe make an old school one that didn't get the shine that, you know, you would like the modern world to know. Like a Semi-Schilt kind of like an interesting guy, you know. But in general, there's not really anybody. Who do you think is the most unlucky fighter? I thought Blachowicz beating Pereira and Allberg, and you could argue he hasn't lost in his last 4 fights. Can't help but feel sorry for him with judging and injuries. You can put Angela Hill on that one. There's been a bunch of decisions I thought could have gone her way that didn't. Ian McCall is probably the worst one. Uncle Creepy. If you don't know about the unluckiness of Ian McCall, either in how fights went or his injuries or other unrelated, but semi-related things that all tripped up his career, the answer has got to be Uncle Creepy Ian McCall. How much leeway do you think Hunter Campbell has when negotiating contracts? They all have a formulaic system. I'm assuming he has direction from TKO on how much to spend on fighters, or does he have carte blanche? No, they have a system that they follow. Like it's an incremental system, and it's all kind of tightly monitored. Yeah, I mean, in certain cases they can make adjustments, but you know, generally speaking. Any advice on how to deal with heartbreak? Man, 1, be kind to yourself. 2, give yourself time. And 3, it's more complicated than it's simple but complicated. You have to do things manually during the course of your day that bring you community and they bring you joy. And you might say, I don't feel joy. I don't want to feel community. And that's understandable too. Like you can't force it to the extent where you get resentful. But you're not going to be able to process things when you're like, also, if you're feeling grief, then just feel grief. Like feeling grief is part of it. Right. And you don't want to hide from grief. If you like drinking, which is what I did to hide from grief, stupid, you know, you have to feel it and it's painful. But the only way to get to the other side is to process what it means. And bringing yourself to a place where you can do that requires, I think, over time, some effort at community, some effort at, making joy a part of your daily experience, things like that. Luke Hoff from Dublin. There is currently zero buzz for Conor's fight here, as 90% of the people are done with him. I know he was on Fallon last week. Is there much buzz over there for his fight? There will be. There will be. Again, he's going to get laundered over here big time. You know what I mean? It'll be big. I mean, maybe not in Ireland, but it'll be big. The Irish are smart. You know, they understand the situation, but Americans, I don't know. Quick follow-up for your book club, Refiction, Katie Kitamura's brilliant first novel, The Long Shot, about MMA. Perfect for your club. Great novel. Okay. Let me make a note about that. Okay. We'll see about that. Thank you, sir. Luke, couldn't help but think of you when the Norwegians started rowing. When the Norwegians started rowing everywhere, do you harbor the same feelings as you do towards the Viking metal rowers? No. If you're a Norwegian and you're actually doing it, I'll let it rock. But the donks sitting on the ground at the metal concerts deserve to be hit in the head with a baton. Did you give Dennis a hard time for the soccer ruse? No, not yet. I can't believe how good the U.S. has looked. I didn't see that coming at all. I thought they were going to just shit the bed like they always do. They've been looking pretty good. I was pondering a comment I read stating the full release of files will destroy the system, and I'm questioning if that's the case. I don't see USA ever revolting fully. I think that's a cop-out to justice, personally. I mean, I'm sure it would cause some great disturbance, but so be it. Sorry for asking a bunch of questions without tagging or making clear which one I wanted to read. Did you highlight my earlier one about Dustin and fighters using camps? Yes, we talked about that earlier. Mm-hmm. What happened to your samurai pick in your background? Oh, it's just up. Just up. Gon gets a lot of heat when he cheats. Why don't more people get upset when Islam cheats? We have agreed he's a serial offender, gloves and finger, but nobody ever gives him heat. They maybe should. I've definitely seen it. I definitely have seen it. I don't know if it's quite as bad as Gone, but fair enough. You could see some of it. Odd question. Can you paint a picture of the societal reaction to O.J. Simpson's trial during your time? Dude, it was insane. I was in ninth grade. I think I was in ninth grade when that came out because I was at my high school at that point. Had the world waiting with bated breath. And then the reaction was so starkly along racial lines, you know, and I didn't understand that at 14 or 15. I thought that the evidence was so overwhelming. And to be clear, like, obviously, there's plenty of people who were Black or African American who also thought he was guilty of sin. It's not to suggest that like it was uniform. And I think over time, a lot of people have kind of come to that conclusion. But like, I didn't at the time. I remember the Rodney King riots, but I didn't understand what they meant. I was very young at that point. I think I was like 10. And I didn't really understand what I was looking at. And then when O.J. Simpson happened, not too long after that, I had a hard time processing how people could celebrate that, you know? And I still have a somewhat of a hard time processing that, but not nearly as much. Like, it took a long time for me to understand the context in LA, in policing, in those communities. And also the prosecution fucking up the case where they couldn't put the gloves on, and, you know, Marsha Clark bringing in Mark Furman, and then he's just saying the N-word a million times on tape. And like, you know, they really fucked that up. But like, you know, with you guys have seen, what was the documentary that ESPN Made in America? I think is what it was called. Like, once I really saw that, and other things too, I really began to understand it. But like, it was shock on one side of the world and elation on the other, and neither side understood the other. Not at the time, anyway. Can you speak to the fact that sundown towns are still a thing and exist in modern day America? Yeah, I mean, I've heard it. I don't deliver packages, but I've heard like UPS drivers saying there are certain towns they just can't go in at night or later on anyway to work because they're not welcome. I don't know where they're documented as a list, but I don't deny that they are, you know, still a thing. Just even beyond that, like, there's just sketchy parts. +1 for Vancouver. Oh, nice. There's just sketchy parts of the country. Have you ever driven through 29 Palms, California? Only reason I know is because I was at 29 Palms for several summers for either a CAX or my, you know, TAD or whatever. Dude, that town is insane. It looks like a horror movie set. Like, even if it's not a sundowning town, I just would not want to be there at all. The Furious was awesome, dude. Like, everyone and their brother has told me how good this movie is. Supergirl was hot garbage. I'm not going to see it anyway. I would like your thoughts on Backrooms. I've not seen it, but everyone I know says it's amazing. No, not Angela White's Pleasure Palace. I haven't seen any of these movies, but I've heard good things about the first and third. Luke, heard you were on Breaking Points, which is awesome, but can't find it on their channel. When are they posting it? It's already up. It's the video they made about the DC Eric Trump thing. My face is not on the thumbnail, but it's my interview. It's already up. No question, just saying thanks for the stream today. I'm not doing a bit. I'm currently cutting my sister's lawn. Hell yeah. Good for you, bro. Appreciate the donation. Thank you for the support. Tom Hardy is dropping his debut rap album alongside Czarface August 28th. Good bit or corny? Let's hear how good the raps are. Probably corny. Let's hear how good the raps are, right? You can't judge a book until you read it, I guess. Hogan made a point that Ilya constantly hurting his sparring partners with body shots affects his training because they become timid and stop giving him the looks he needs. Do you think that's valid? Yes. Super valid. I mean, that also sets up the reactions he needs when he lands body shots in fights. But if they're deterred from giving him the kind of array of looks he needs for the array of challenges he faces, yes. Luke, with their recent release of the R2 model, also representing the make or break period for them, any thoughts on Rivian? I don't know a lot about Rivian. I know that they made that. I like what I've seen from them. I mean, to me, it's like none of these people can compete with the Chinese auto manufacturers. So I don't really know what we're going to get out of Rivian, but I would like to see them succeed. They made a e-bike that looks unbelievably fucking cool. I forget the name of it, and it's modular in the way you can take things off and add it. That thing looked so fucking awesome. I would love for a company like that to really do well. I've never ridden in a Rivian. I've seen some of my daughter's friends' parents at school drive Rivians. They look real nice, but I have not followed it closely. I really wonder like what can be done, even with protectionist policies in place to protect American auto manufacturers. I don't know. LT Donk dating update. The World Cup game for date 3 was a roaring fucking success. Thanks for the sage words and wisdom. The little baddie and I are going to Santa Cruz this weekend. Much love. My friend, I wish you nothing but joy in that particular department. Do you think it may be beneficial long-term for the left to have a generationally talented politician like Mamdani with no aim for POTUS? I think it'd be better, actually, if he could be POTUS. He cannot. But yeah, I think any kind of talented politician. But again, it's not just about like what kind of soaring rhetoric you can provide. Obama's good for soaring rhetoric. That's not that great. Like at the end of the day, I want to see what you can fucking deliver. What are you delivering? What are you actually advocating for? What are you actually fighting for? Judge the politics based on the fruits of that it bears. Luke, any chance we can get access to your old film studies like Izzy Whitaker? I don't see it on either Substack or here. Yeah, I might, for members, I might be able to make that available. Yes. I'm sure BC is enjoying his CBS money, but sometimes it feels like he's like that Pablo Escobar meme, just standing around and missing the Donk family. I mean, I wish he could still be on MK. I really do. I don't know what to say about any of that shit, dude. Yeah. He's wildly talented. And I don't know. I don't know what to say anymore. It's not my call. I can't do anything about it, and I want to be clear one more time. He's invited on MK anytime he wants, but it's not up to me. Thank you for Othman Snickers fun. Thank you. Trey Young, 4-year, 212. What the fuck are the Wizards doing? They're trying to win now. Obviously, they got the number 1 draft pick, but they're trying to win. I mean, it's 4 years, 212 million. You're like, well, they shouldn't be putting that kind of money up, but like they're just trying to throw whatever they can at the wall right now to see if they can win next season. Oh, they got a young core going. Yeah, but then why would you do this? If Portugal win their group, Messi and Ronaldo would go on the same bracket, and a Messi versus Ronaldo quarterfinals game would go head-to-head with UFC 329 on July 11th. Yeah, but not the same time, right? In all likelihood. Also, not for nothing, Colombia might beat Portugal this weekend. We'll see. Both groin shots and back-of-the-head strikes are illegal. Why is one accidental groin shot stopped instantly, but several punches aren't? They get treated differently in the rules. And especially they might stop it in certain sequences, but if it's this like visible fight ending scenario, they want to let that play out. When are we getting lawn mowing LT merch? It's a good question. I should actually do that. That's kind of funny. I hadn't thought of it that way. Maybe we will. Ideally, Max buries Conor and we could be done with him. We shouldn't be celebrating rapists. Tyson getting a pass too is weird. The Tyson argument to me is a little less weird. Tyson went to jail. Like that, I'm not saying, oh, now you have to be his best friend. That's not my point. And I also have had a kind of moral awakening on this where like I interviewed him once for Glory and I didn't even think about some of those kinds of things. Like it takes time for like your conscience to develop, at least for me it did anyway. So, my record on this is not exactly clear, but like to me, I'm not, again, this is not like, oh, you just have to forgive them. But like if somebody goes to jail and then serves a sentence, to me, that's very different than you just lost a civil case. And your only real issue is your reputation's in tatters and you can just pay a fine. I think that there's something to be said for a qualitative difference between the two. LT going to be a dad for the first time. Congratulations, good sir. Got any good book recommendations? 12 weeks of sleep or 12 hours of sleep by 12 weeks. That's the one you're going to need, my friend. Luke, first a donation for your cannabis fund. Thank you, sir. Secondly, your dating advice for a shorn nether region was followed and yielded. Okay. I don't need to know this. I'm glad for you. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm happy for you, but I don't need to know about the billy goat hair situation on your testes, okay? it was weird people celebrating OJ being acquitted, but it did turn around a lot over time within the, yes, it did. I think over time they began, what they were looking at was a system of injustice, which again, at age 14 or 15, I just couldn't even understand. But they were trying to react to that. But then the weight of like who OJ was over time made it harder. Thoughts on State Department, UFC, MOU, any good writing on it? We don't know much about it yet. The NFL has one of these deals too. It really just depends how they get used. It could be not much of anything, just like good PR. It could end up being, who knows, State Department money goes towards UFC events. I guess we'll see. The one thing I think you should focus on is clearly Rubio wants UFC to do for him what it did for Trump. Y'all see that, right? Like Rubio is clearly positioning himself to obviously a 2028 presidential run, obviously, but then more than that, he's looking for the rub that UFC gave to Trump. I don't know if he'll get it in the same way. I think Trump's a special case, but like clearly he's looking for that. As a millennial myself, I would have needed 10 alarms to wake up after the White House card. Props for bringing the energy on breaking points. What's your take on DC and Eric Trump? Dude, all these interviews you guys have seen me do, like both times I've done Pablo Torre, the Breaking Points interview, the Dan Le Batard interview I did that day. I do all these on like 2 hours of sleep. Every time I have to go to New York for those Pablo Torre interviews, I never sleep the night before. It's a miracle that they come out as good as they do because I am just on fumes. And people ask about the Trump and the DC thing. I don't fucking know, bro. Like, could he have been hacked? Sure. Could it all just be a ruse? Sure. I don't know. And the reason why I'm comfortable saying that is because even if it is real, nothing is going to happen to the people involved. And so it's like, what is the point? And like, do you need that to know if the Trumps and Uday and Kusei and Eric and Don Jr., like, do you need that to know if they're unethical? Like that would be just one tiny piece of things that they've done, Thanks for the quality video about DP. A fair mix of kindness and genuine accountability is the only answer. It's the only way. Just celebrated 8 years and never seen real sobriety without both factors present. That's right. That's the thing about it, dude. Like, if you care about a person, you can't go in there and be like, fuck you, you're shit. Da, 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 da. Like, what's that going to, especially if they're sick and they need help, right? Like, what's that going to do? It's going to make them feel bad. They're not going to listen. At the same time, you can't go in there and be like, man, you didn't do anything. These people are just overreacting. Da, 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 da. You kind of got to tell them, dude, you fucked up. You should look at that. I mean, dude, if you're getting arrested at an airport, like it's bad, dude. Like you can't be doing that, especially threatening to fight people, dropping N-bombs. Like, you can't be doing that, dude. And it's on Father's Day and shit. Like, it's not, no, just unacceptable. No, but at the same time, dude, if you actually want that guy to get help, you have to tell him the truth, but you have to show him the compassion that can get him that truth. You know what I mean? Like, it's not one or the other, that people really get this wrong. And then sometimes you need tough love too. That can be the case. But I don't know Dustin like that. I mean, I've interviewed him many times over the years. I have his phone number in my phone. But I don't know him like that. You know what I mean? So I'll leave that to other people. Like, his wife can talk to him like that or whatever. But for all of us out here, like, you got to recognize the truth, but then recognize the truth of recovery and try to balance those equally if you can. All right, last but not least. Speaking about Rivian, the Amazon EV vans are a collaboration with Rivian. Also, absolutely insane that they have officially banned Polestar EVs because of the connection to Geely. I'm not sure how that's properly pronounced. I've only seen a couple of Polestars in town. I don't know much about them either. Can I be honest? I know much more about BYD. I rode in a BYD in Portugal, and then there's a BYD dealership, I guess, in Bogota. And I went there on my last trip there, and it was fucking insane. Like, I mean, dude, once you ride in a BYD, you're going to be like, oh, right. This is why they won't sell these in the States. They would BYD alone would destroy the rest of our industry, to say nothing of all the other brands. Xiaomi's, I think, got cars. Huawei's got cars too. And there's just a million Chinese brands you haven't even heard of. Dude, I rode in that BYD a couple times, and I was like, holy shit. And then you look at the prices, and you just can't believe how good it is for the price. Oh, the quality of the automobile is bad. Fuck off. I'll take that. The end. All right, one more, I guess. Without going into much detail or betraying confidence, is it the higher ups at UFC Paramount blocking BC from coming on MK? Deepest apologies for The Billy Goat TMI. The Donk Degenerate is real. I can't say anything more than I've already said, except, I have a great relationship with BC. Everybody on MK has a great relationship with BC. We all talk to him almost every single day. He has an open seat, and we're awaiting his return, but I can only do what I can do. That's it. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I'm trying to see here. Baku coverage. I'll not live, but I'll have something for you guys over the weekend. And then we're off to the races. All right. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Oh, wait, one more. Any idea when you're going to do your next live LTGP chat? Yes. I had a meeting about this yesterday. I am going to start doing those once a week, maybe starting next week, but if not, then thereafter. Probably on Tuesdays. Probably. I'm still trying to figure that part out. But yes, pretty soon, very soon, we're going to start doing those once a week. So we'll see. Stay tuned. All right. I'm out of here. Thank you all. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.